My name is Reinier de Graaf. I'm a partner in the Office for Metropolitan Architecture, the office founded by Rem Koolhaas, with whom I have been closely and intimately collaborating for the past 20 years. It is very interesting for us to work in Albania and in its capital Tirana in particular, not least because of the very interesting history of the country. Albania acquired independence in 1912. Between the two world wars it had a very strong Italian influence, as you can still see in the planning of Tirana today. Then of course after the war it became communist and remained so for 40 years under the rule of Enver Hoxha. Suffered progressive degrees of isolation as it successively alienated all of its friends. First Yugoslavia, then Russia, then China, to actually spend the last 10 years of its communist existence in virtually complete isolation. The country opened up after 1991, became a democracy, became economically steadily more prosperous in a more free way to reach the configuration as today. We have a very interesting site. The site is engulfed by the city surrounds it, and the city also has very big plans. The city is planning a new fourth ring road to which our site is directly connected, and on the outside of our site, further away, the city is planning a green belt, the so-called Metro Bosco, and interestingly you could say that our site theoretically forms a connection between that ring road and that Metro Bosco. Still, the site has a very rural experience, a very green part of the city, in the middle of the city. You look at the city all around, you look at the mountains and some former communist quarters. In the north and to the south of our site are informal settlements that largely have sprung up in the 90s. For this site we have proposed a checkerboard-like pattern, which is in a way, you could call it a kind of formalized sprawl. You could kind of say that our development takes the charm of the informal settlements and makes a planned version of them. We reach quite a density, but still 70% of our site is open space. That means we have a lot of green space, and interestingly, we've also organized our development in such a way that it's a car-free zone. Most of the car park happens underground, and most of the circulation, therefore at grade, is pedestrian. Across our site runs a long central spine, which in a way connects to the larger master plan of the city, the ring road and the Metro Bosco. And that spine is in a way a large public space that ties our whole thing together, links the various courtyards in a long route across the site, creates a multitude of expressions, and is in a way a very vibrant urban axis that makes the development really a whole. Our site has a very strong slope. I think the difference between the lowest and the highest point of our site is about 27 meters. That is a 9-story building, and that has essentially allowed us to do something interesting. We've proposed an urban morphology of blocks, clustered blocks that surround courtyards, and where on a flat plane this would be a relatively introverted typology. Because of the slope, every building looks over the next, and therefore in this case this urban morphology is very, very generous with views. The last thing in relation to our proposal I would like to mention is the use of color. Of course, Tirana is very famous for the use of color, largely thanks to its former mayor, Edi Rama, an artist who painted the whole city. But where so far the use of color in Tirana has been largely retroactively applied, this development applies it proactively. Color is part of our concept. Every courtyard has a very different color, therefore promoting a sense of identity and to use a contemporary word, do a certain placemaking in the whole development and creating a kind of added layer of diversity on our